Emily had always been a lover of the open road. After months of endless work and city noise, she finally decided to take a long-awaited road trip through the countryside. The winding roads, the rolling hills, and the promise of solitude were a welcome escape. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the landscape, she found herself driving down a particularly desolate stretch of road. The GPS signal had faltered hours ago, and now only the dim glow of her headlights cut through the gathering darkness. She passed a small, hand-painted sign that read "The Forgotten Inn, rooms available." Emily, tired and running low on gas, decided to check it out. The inn was nestled between two towering oak trees, their gnarled branches forming an eerie archway over the entrance. It looked old, but charming, with its weathered wooden walls and flickering porch light. The innkeeper, an elderly man with a stooped back and a thin, melancholic smile, welcomed her inside. The interior was surprisingly warm and inviting, with a roaring fire in the hearth and the smell of freshly baked bread in the air. Emily was led to a quaint, dimly lit room with a heavy oak door and a large, four-poster bed. Grateful for the hospitality, she thanked the innkeeper and settled in. As she lay in bed, the silence of the inn seemed almost oppressive, and she felt an odd shiver run down her spine. The darkness outside pressed in against the windows, and the only sound was the occasional creak of the old building. In the middle of the night, Emily woke to a soft, unsettling noise, a rhythmic tapping coming from the window. She turned on the bedside lamp and looked out, but saw nothing except the inky blackness. Shrugging it off as a branch swaying in the wind, she turned back to sleep. But the tapping continued, growing louder and more insistent. Emily's curiosity got the better of her. She slipped out of bed and approached the window, peering into the darkness. To her horror, she saw a pair of pale, ghostly hands pressing against the glass, their fingers scratching desperately. Panicking, she backed away from the window and stumbled to the door, but it was locked from the outside. The innkeeper's face flashed in her mind, his eerie smile and the strange way he'd watched her as she entered. With trembling hands, she searched for her phone, but it was nowhere to be found. The tapping turned into a frantic pounding. Desperate, Emily tried to force open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The walls seemed to close in on her, the air growing colder. Suddenly, the pounding stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily held her breath, listening for any sound, but all she heard was her own racing heartbeat. She turned slowly toward the window and saw the ghostly hands had disappeared. Summoning all her courage, Emily approached the window once more. She peered out, and to her shock, the inn was now completely different. The once quaint building had transformed into a decrepit, dilapidated structure, its windows shattered and its walls covered in vines and decay. The realization hit her with icy clarity. The inn was not what it seemed. It was as if time had twisted and turned, trapping her in a nightmarish version of reality. Frantically, Emily tried to escape through the window, but it was locked tight. The darkness outside seemed to close in on her, and the old inn seemed to whisper in a language she couldn't understand. Morning finally arrived, and Emily found herself lying in the same bed, the room unchanged. It was as if the night's events had been a terrible dream. The innkeeper greeted her with his melancholic smile as she left, the place looking as normal as when she had arrived. As Emily drove away, she glanced back one last time. The inn was gone, replaced by nothing but trees and a foggy mist. She never saw it again, and no one she spoke to had ever heard of the Forgotten Inn. She never took another road trip, and every time she saw a sign for a roadside inn, a shiver ran down her spine. The memory of that night lingered like a shadow, a reminder that some places are better left forgotten.